we have to be, in our school systems, very aware of making sure that dance is accessible to everybody, regardless of their incomes or whether they feel culturally it's accessible. Because sometimes different cultures react to classical ballet in different ways, and I would love to make that friendlier.
I often get asked about being a female choreographer. Obviously, there aren't many. And likewise, the number of dancers who come from other ethnicities in a ballet company is way too small.
Coming from South Africa and being Portuguese and living in London, of course, I love a global community. In my own work, I'm constantly thinking about that. I think you have to make a real effort. I think not only diversity of ethnic race, but I think also with dancers with different abilities and disabilities.
I would hope that it would evolve to a point where anyone from any race or class would be interested to come and see the ballet and would be able to come and see the ballet.
I think I'm the first Chinese artistic director in the United States for a ballet company. And I feel very honored to have that platform. At the same time, I feel slightly confused because there should be more of us.
It's certainly not an issue that is just being swept under the rug anymore. I mean, we're talking about it openly and honestly.
There's a very fine line between wanting to represent a diverse perspective in one's own work, but also being true to one's own perspective of the planet and not wanting to speak on anyone else's behalf.
I think it's really important that companies look like the world. That if you're in a city and the members of your company don't reflect that city, that's something that needs to be addressed. Talent is everywhere.
When I was a kid, I would have really benefited seeing a queer story on stage by an openly queer person. I think it's important, especially for kids who aren't going to buy a ticket on their own to the ballet, nor maybe even know what ballet is, other than that there's a tutu involved sometimes, which rarely there is. I think it's important to realize that they have a space, they have a story that they can connect to.
People like, Misty Copeland or Michaela Prince, they are an example for the future. So maybe all these young little girls will think, well, I can be a white swan one day. I hope to be an example for these female choreographers who want to start very soon, and they will say, well, she made it, so I can make it too.
To begin, as has been the pattern in these conversations, let's look at the big picture. Ballet as an art form. Why ballet now? I'd like each of the panelists to speak to your own expectations of the art form.
Shall I start?
Yes.
I believe that ballet as an art form is essential for our society, and then I believe that ballet and dance in general will always be relevant. For myself as a teacher, ballet teacher, educator, I think ballet is an incredible training. Of course, it's grounded in tradition, but as you've been able to see it lately, it's still very innovative, and it will constantly challenge you to achieve excellence. So, yeah, for me, ballet is very relevant today.
Are we going down the line?
We can jump in where you want.
I love San Francisco Ballet. I love the work I do. For me, it's about being able to see students move from being a young student into the role of being a young artist and an emerging artist. And I think the work that we do with students helps to perpetuate the art form, but it also allows for exploration of the student beyond just dancing into choreography, into all different kinds of opportunities.
The ballet, ballet itself is ever-growing, ever-changing. It's alive and well. And sometimes I hear people say, oh, is ballet dead, or is classicism dead? No, it's changing. The form is being pushed. This festival is evidence of that, and it's quite exciting to see. I'm a part of it. It's quite exciting to be a choreographer right now in this field, because you have the permission to go even further than one might think a ballet performance would go in. You can really take the form itself and look outside of, blur the lines a bit. I like all kinds of movement. I think that ballet as a base is essential for all training of young people in terms of their dancing. But I also think that nowadays you really can't go to any company, even ballet company, without some type of contemporary work or a contemporary series. So it's become more and more essential for dancers of today to be well trained in multiple disciplines, and I think that's a great thing.
I would echo that. I have found that I often compare classical dance to the training of a musician, and think of Wynton Marsalis, that he needed to have that classical foundation before he branched off into jazz. It's simply extraordinary what's required of artists today. It's evident on the festival here at SFB. What we also try to do at SMUN is explore various avenues and see where can we push dance. As an art form, I see, for me personally, it's always been something that feeds the soul, but in recent years, I'm coming to realize what a unifier it is. When I see the people, and it could be reflective of what's happening nationally, politically, but I see people coming in and just really needing the arts. And that regardless of who they are or from where they come, they have this sense that we can still all come together and appreciate our humanity. I think it's going to be, the time has come that we need to realize not just our differences, that realize our similarities. And it's going to require removing barriers. So it's identifying what those barriers are, I think, that will help us to grow this art form, but it is relevant, and we're keeping it relevant by seeing what this art form, where it can take us.
I think we would all be so much more poor without ballet or dance. So it's essential that it will have a long life ahead of it. I think it can convey human emotions through body language, beauty, drama, sadness, and I think it's an incredible art form, and it's kind of transports you to a different place through the dancer's passion for their art form. And I think that's so important in our school to foster that in our students, that there is a true passion for the art form, because it is truly a beautiful art form.
One of the things that struck me in the midst of this conference is that we're talking about diversity and inclusion, but I'm not sure that we're all talking about the same thing. So I just do want to ask each of you to talk to me and the panel and the people here today about how would you define those two terms? Diversity, what does it mean? Diversity and inclusion, how is that something that affects the work that we're doing here? Let's start with Celia.
For me, inclusion is understanding and acceptance of many things. When we look at diversity, it can mean many things. I'm a Hispanic female running a ballet company. Like Edward Liang was saying, he was the only Chinese artistic director. Maybe Lopez is the only other Hispanic artistic director. Diversity can mean skin color. It can mean so many things. I guess for me, as a female, I'm very aware of that, and being welcoming to females and the opportunities that they seek as choreographers or to further their careers in arts management, basically to open up opportunities, to remove those barriers.
For us, diversity and inclusion is very broad. So it's about, of course, in our school, developing a pipeline of students, both locally, nationally, and internationally, but it's also opening our doors to a wide variety of individuals who would like to partake in dance. So that encompasses everything from our Parkinson's dance class series to sensory-friendly family workshops to our work in the schools through the Dance in Schools and Communities program. It's very broad. So I hope that we can have a discussion that isn't only about race, but it's about allowing and inviting anyone who would like to dance, and having us create a sense of belonging.
On my side, opportunity is a very important word, because the only thing I can do is help people, and then it's to provide people with opportunities. Then obviously the more people from different backgrounds into the school, it's more opportunity for everybody, and I think it's really important.
I started a company 25 years ago in New York City with the thought process. Well, I was starting a company and didn't know I was starting a company. It was a project called Complexions, myself and Desmond Richardson, and we really didn't know what we were doing, but what we wanted to do was invite people from all the different, what we did was invite people from all the different major companies in New York City, and I had this grand idea that I would make one performance, and we put ballerinas that were very classical with very modern dancers. The race was a non-issue, really. It wasn't really about the race, but it was very diverse. I had many friends, of course, from the Alvin Ailey Company, so we had many African-American dancers as well, but we paired them with whoever we thought would be a sensational pairing. And we called it Complexions because we really wanted to explore the idea of having a project that had music that went from, say, Bach to rock and roll. So the diversity wasn't just about the racial makeup, it was also about the dancers themselves being all different body types, all different training. The music on the program was from classical to the most contemporary. We had improvisation, I had 8 men on point, it was crazy. And we really didn't think that but we sat back at the tech rehearsal at Symphony Space, 95th and Broadway. We were sold out for 3 performances. And we sat back in the tech and looked at this, and then, you know, they said, "You're sold out." I said, "Look at this." It was an amazing display of beauty. And we had everything on the stage. I'm not saying it was the best show ever, because it was crazy how we had to put that thing together. But the beauty of all of the differences under one roof, and we're not just talking racially. Virginia, you were there probably, or you were there. So it was the beginning of something, and we felt a responsibility to that concept of really, and for us, diversity was that. It was about this beautiful thing in front of us, this ballet, this modern, this jazz, all of these things were under one roof. So saying all that to say, Complexions continues 25 years later, and we are still that diverse company. We've come down in size. We had 33 dancers on the first show ever. Well, that's hard to afford as a small company, and no one got paid, though. Back then, it was all volunteer. Anyway, but my point is that it's something that is still very important to what it is that I do, and I look for dancers that are different and special and distinct, and I think that is also part of the diversity card that we all want to have in our deck as we work.
I have to take you back, way back in time. Growing up in Iceland, there was no ballet tradition. I had no reference to anything, what it should be or should not be. And I had one of the most incredible experience when I was in my teens to see Jerome Robbins' Ballet USA perform in Iceland. And there was an African-American dancer on stage, John Jones. And there were Asian dancers in the company. And to me wow, that's what ballet is. That's normal, that's great. And so when I came to the States and I joined Joffrey Ballet, the same thing happened. Mr. Joffrey brought in Alvin Ailey to choreograph for us. There was Carmen Diavola came sometimes to help us with classes. And so many different types of dancers that my starting years as a dancer were just that. Everybody was included. And I think it has so much shaped my way of directing San Francisco Ballet that it should include everybody. Traditionally, there was nothing in my background that said, no, it has to be like this. This is what it has been. I was the only boy the first year in that school. There were 200 girls, that was great. But for me, it should include everybody. I have no problem with that. It's just been normal to me.
So this is really interesting because we're doing all kinds of things about this diversity and inclusion idea. We are very much engaged and believe in it. And yet, for all of you here, you're here because you're not feeling that it's happening enough. You want to know, why can it be more? What is missing that we're not experiencing when we come to the ballet, diversity and inclusion? And that mismatch between these amazing activities that are happening with this group of people and your interest in what's going on. What is the challenge in changing the public perception of what this art form is? Because you're doing the work, but the public still sees this as an exclusive, elitist, non-inclusive art form. That's our step.
I think we haven't done a good enough job of telling our story. So you think about everything that we're doing, and as a bigger ballet company, we sometimes feel hesitant about, oh, is it enough? Is it not enough? But we've got to establish what the baseline is. Be proud of the work that we're doing, let everybody know about it, and then we can move forward to what the next steps are. So I think that is part of it, just telling our story.
I think the challenge is just getting people in the door. If they just try it, if they just come in, sometimes people will say, well, I don't like ballet, and we'll say, well, this is ballet. And it's just what ballet has become. But it's just, the challenge is just to get people into the theater and expose people to it. And so if we can't get people in the door, how do we get to them? I think it's helpful that there have been these shows on television about dance, because I think it's highlighting dance in its many forms. And sometimes you see ballet on those shows you've been on, right? Choreographed. And so I think that's great. I think that's at least, in a 1 hour show, you're able to at least get millions of people to show them what's possible. And so it's about the communication of the art form and getting people in the door or getting out to the people.
I agree. I think also we do one performance a year in Stern Grove. and it's free to the public. And there are times we get, 5,000, 6,000 people in there. I don't think they will come to the Opera House. And I wonder, is that because of the expense? Yes, exactly. And you know, Glenn McCoy, my executive director who's over there, is probably horrid when I say, why don't we have some performances that are $10 a ticket? You know? And just do that. But who is going to underwrite that? That's always the question. But I think it would be a very good thing to do. Because just for them to experience a live performance. I remember in Los Angeles, we were doing Romeo and Juliet. And there was a performance for the school kids. And one of my staff members overheard in the first intermission, a young little girl said, "Is the movie over?" You know, that's sad, isn't it? Again, it all goes back to that. We have to bring children. We have to bring children into the theater, being it dance, music, or theater. It's so important.
And if we're going to look at this art form 5 years from now, what is the thing that we need to do to make this idea a past topic? We don't have to talk about it anymore because we're experiencing it. We're experiencing it in our organizations, we're experiencing it in our audiences, we're experiencing it on our stages. And it's not just about the dancers, but who's making the dancers, who's lighting the dancers. What is the answer here? Because we don't feel it's inclusive yet. And we need to find that. We need to feel it's inclusive.
Can I ask a question? What about programming? Does programming play a role in who comes to the theater? Okay, that seems to be we all know the answer to that question probably. Musical choices, focuses in programming, perhaps guest performers from various diverse backgrounds, or I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. Is this something that would help us move forward?
I think it can help, and in as much as it helps people to relate. I think that different audiences will come. I mean, look at the audience that goes to see Alvin Ailey when they're at Zellerbach. I mean, we pull in a different audience depending on the music choice. But I think it's because people will find something on the program that says, I can relate to that. Yeah. And then while they're in the theater, expose them to 2 other ballets that they may not know the music, or maybe we did a ballet to Sinatra, and they can relate to that. But that they can say, well, this is also incredible. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Yeah. It can definitely affect the choices that the audience makes.
So what does this art form look like 5 years from now?
It's a big question.
It's a big question. How is it different? And let's just talk about different in terms of diversity, and not just necessarily who's on the stage, but what's happening.
Maybe we hope more colorful, more inclusive, but yet, how can I say, the art form has to also be what that drives the public to come to see us. And if we instill that passion in the young students, and we bring the choreographers to challenge them, hopefully that will keep the audience coming.
Does the art form need to change to do that?
I think it does change. It's changing. We can't stay the same. And this is what I feel is so necessary. We need to look ahead. Yes, we have great respect for what has gone before us, We can talk about the swan legs and giselles and all that, absolutely, and there's an audience for it. And then there's an audience for the Robins and Balanchine and Ashton and a few other. But life is constantly changing, a society, and we have to be able to change with that. And hopefully not be dragged somewhere behind and try to keep up with it. Maybe in some ways, we might be a little bit ahead of them.
Well, I fear that we will, as much as we strive to be inclusive, and we think that, I mean, in our city, we are so accepting, and we think that we've made progress in that, and I fear, as events politically are showing in the last couple of years, that have we really made those strides? And so I think we have to keep trying to look for our similarities and celebrate our differences. And it's got to be, we have to continue to strive to lower the barriers and remove the fear. When people think, well, I don't like that, have you experienced it?
So when I took over the school, my main point is like the school needs to represent our community. And I think we are quite good at that. But we need, again, we still need to keep, and I think now it's up to us to make the step, as I said before. I mean, we need to go to, and obviously in the school district too, we need to go, but I mean, it's not, if they're not provided with an education, those kids, they don't understand what's happening. And I think there is nothing worse to, when you pick up something, to somebody, a young student, to go somewhere, and he's not aware of what's going to happen to him. Then, I mean, it's not good enough for us to go to school and then bring kids into our school and train them. They need to know what it is about. And on top of that, ballet, what's another thing too, I'm not training only dancers, I'm training to an audience for the future. So then more diversity I've got in the school, I will have more diverse an audience later on. Because not everybody, you know, everybody's got the right to dance. I believe that. That's a normal art form. But not everybody is going to have a career in dancing because there is a lot of thing happening through your childhood. And I mean, and then there is not enough job to, you know, you cannot have 500 kids out all becoming dancer. Then it's training them. Because, I mean, if you have a training in ballet, I mean, I hope so, because that's what I'm trying to do. It's like to share my passion of the art form. Then, I mean, they will go to the theater. And then the audience would be more diverse if we've got more diverse students into the school, too. And eventually, yeah, it'll be great if all the way through the school I get diversity, I get different backgrounds, and not only in the scholarship program. It will be great to have that happening very soon.
So you see in 5 years that the school will be significantly different than it is now because you put in place these programs to infuse diversity into your student body.
So I think my focus and my role in the organization is about looking at our organization and what we do holistically through the culture and leadership within the staff, looking how to change recruitment processes and so forth, so that we are, you know, number one, viewed as the best nonprofit cultural organization to work for in San Francisco, to look at our community, the communities that were served, to assure that we are being thoughtful about engaging communities, to look at our role in the dance field as leaders, and then drilling down to our board, our staff, our dancers, our school, and our audience, of course, in looking at D&I more holistically and broadly.
You know, my contribution can continue. I need to continue doing what I'm doing in terms of what my company is, and also the work that I do outside of my company, like I've done for Unbound, is I bring into the room an appreciation of differences in colors, qualities, and textures when it comes to movement itself.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I want to thank each of you for your contributions today, and especially for this panel that's been part of the Boundless Festival, because it is about creating no limits on who is on the stage and what is happening on the stage. So thank you, and I appreciate you all for being part of this panel.